Welcome back to The Nation. And a new campaign claims that internet users are facing an effective $600 million tax, with the proceeds going, well, not to the government, but to Chorus, the privately owned telecommunications infrastructure company that was once part of Telecom. Because Chorus is a monopoly where copper's concerned, the government regulates the price it can charge to broadband users to connect to the old copper-based network. Last year, the Commerce Commission recommended the price be slashed by 25%. Chorus complained the government stepped in, and Chorus will now face a much smaller cut to its profits. Now, a coalition made up of groups like Internet New Zealand, David Farrar from Kiwi Blog, and the student unions have joined forces to protest what they're calling a copper tax. Their spokesperson, Sue Chetwynd, CEO of Consumer New Zealand, joins us from Wellington, and here in the studio in Auckland, Mark Ratcliffe, CEO of Chorus. Mr Ratcliffe, I first want to address directly something the Prime Minister said on television this week. He suggested that if this lower price-setting cut of 25% wasn't acceded to, or the government didn't modify the Commerce Commission's recommendation, that your company could go under. Is that true?
That was the Prime Minister's opinion of it.
Well, presumably you told him that.
No, we haven't discussed it with the Prime Minister.
So was the Prime Minister making that up?
He's obviously looked at and done some analysis of the thing and the situation, and that's the conclusion that he's come to.
What is your analysis of the situation?
Our analysis of the situation is that there's a long way to go in this process yet, and under whatever the price reduction ends up being, and under every single circumstances there is a price reduction.
So it is not the case, as the Prime Minister said, that if the Commerce Commission's recommendation were adopted, your company would go bust?
There are a bunch of scenarios that could happen depending on where the price ends up, and I'm not going to get into discussing what the worst possible case scenario is.
Well, why on earth would the Prime Minister say that if you hadn't told him
Well, I think the Prime Minister's looked at the numbers, he's got advisors and concluded that's a possible scenario.
Have you been talking to the Prime Minister?
No.
And you haven't given any of the scenarios you've got?
We've talked as part of a range of regulatory submissions to both officials and the Commerce Commission in terms of submissions that have gone on over the last 18 months as this has been in the public domain. All
right, so you do not feel that your company is in peril because of this issue?
I think under the most extreme things there's some really challenging scenarios.
So is this your company in peril if...
I mean, I think it's been pretty clear that from the way that the government has recently intervened is that the extreme end of the price reduction is unlikely to happen, and that there is a narrower range of options now on the table.
All right. Sue Chetwynd, why has this campaign been launched? Why are you so concerned about the price of copper?
Well, look, the reason we're concerned is that we see that this is a $600 million tax that will be going to Chorus, a privately owned company. Now, that company made $171 million last year and paid out nearly $100 million in dividends to its shareholders. So if it's a company going broke, it certainly doesn't look like it, and its share price yesterday was at $2.88. So the market seems to think that that company is pretty good. We're concerned that most New Zealanders won't get any benefit from this $600 million tax. 25% of New Zealanders won't in fact even be able to get ultra-fast broadband. Chorus is a company that won the tender to lay the broadband in most of the country. It got a $1 billion loan from the government to do that.
Well, it's an interest-free, non-repayable loan, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a nice loan. I'd like a loan like that. But they should just get on and do it.
And you're saying because they have the monopoly on the copper, and the Commerce Commission has said they should cut the wholesale price of that copper by 12.5%, they should simply do that?
That's absolutely right. And look, the Commerce Commission is the independent regulator here, and it is regulating Chorus because obviously it has the monopoly on copper. It is the only one that does have copper in the country. And it has, over a period of months, come to the conclusion that the price should drop to about $33. What the government has done is stepped in, issued a discussion document where the price would actually be about $44. So that's where we get the $600 million tax on Kiwis.
Mark Ratcliffe, why can't you accede to what the Commerce Commission says? It has done the research, it is the regulator, it is the body that makes the recommendation. It says you are overcharging on its estimates by 12.5%. You do have a monopoly on the copper. Why don't you simply comply?
Look, Sean, what we're in the middle is the intersection of a number of regulatory processes, one of which relates to the copper pricing, which is an unfinished set of regulatory discussion, and one relates to the broadband prices. The prices that Sue is talking about is a draft opinion put out by the Commerce Commission, an initial draft opinion put out many months ago, which is now the subject of consultation with the industry, as are the copper prices. So there's a range of their prices there. The government has intervened to provide some certainty on pricing.
At your request, or did they do that off their own back?
They chose to do it off their own back.
You haven't lobbied government at all? You've never met a government official or a minister about this issue?
Well, of course we've met government officials, and we've on a range of issues, but the government...
This issue?
Yes, we have met
Well,
them.
You just told me you didn't lobby them. So if you've discussed the issue with them and expressed a view, you have lobbied them. That's what lobbying is.
I think what we've done is present a range of our views on the subject about where we see things at. I mean, obviously, we are in a public and private partnership with the Crown, investing, in our case, up to $3 billion on building a new fibre network. There are obviously opportunities to talk to officials and ministers around how that investment's going, how the rollout's going, what uptake is like. So Sue talks about the amount of money that we made last year. Last year, we spent $650 million plus on investing in both copper and fibre networks in New Zealand. So our investment in New Zealand is roughly 6 times on new infrastructure what shareholders are getting in the place of dividends.
How am I meant to feel, as Sue would say, if I was one of the 25% of New Zealanders who will never get fibre broadband, right, because they're not going to? I've got to take the copper. Wholesale, it's got to be provided by you, and I know that copper service has been provided to me at a rate higher than the Commerce Commission recommends. Why shouldn't I feel ripped off by Chorus?
Well, if you are in the rural community, you're getting the benefit of fibre. The 75% of New Zealand that's getting the benefits...
What if I'm part of the 25%, Mark?
Well, some of those people are served by fibre. We have an extensive rollout of rural broadband there, which is in company with Vodafone, taking better broadband services into the heart of the rural community. If you talk to Whare farmers about that, they'll tell you that their communities are benefiting from the investments there. 60% of New Zealand, including...
How do I feel if I'm one of the 25% who is paying more for my broadband than the Commerce Commission, which has investigated, thinks I should?
No, the Commerce Commission has put a draft price out, which is a significant reduction there. The Minister's indicated that under every single scenario, there will be price reductions in the wholesale service. With the retail providers...
Sean, could I just interrupt there and say, if Chorus does have a problem there, that is right. The Commerce Commission has issued a draft finding. We can all submit on that, and we can all put forward our views and say what we think the price should be, and the Commerce Commission can go away and think about that. And that is the appropriate way that this should be handled. But we haven't got that now. We've had the government stepping in and saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to interfere with the Commerce Commission, the independent regulator, and say what the price is going to be within a very limited range. Now that's just, taking us back to the 1970s. What we should have is Chorus and us making our views known to the Commerce Commission.
Well, Sue, as we are, the Commerce Commission processes are still running. So so what we've got now is a dual process. Commerce Commission process is running, and the government process coming in over the top.
So, Mark Ratcliffe, the battle lines are clearly drawn. This story isn't over yet, but we have to leave it there. Thank you to my guest, Mark Ratcliffe, CEO of Chorus, and Sue Chetwynd, CEO of Consumer New Zealand.